Konami really likes tears. Salty. How's it going, YouTube? How's it going, Dueling Book? It's Vengeful Shadows here, and today we're going to bring you a real quick video about how to beat Kashtira. Now, if you've been keeping up with the OCG metagame at all, you will know that Kashtira has taken the meta by storm. So much so that Konami actually had to hit them really hard in the most recent OCG list, but that has not stopped them from topping. So we would like to equip our players here in the TCG with the tools needed to beat Kashtira. Now, to beat your enemy, you must know your enemy. So what does Kashtira do? They banish face down, and then each time they banish face down, their boss monsters will actually get unique abilities that will start triggering that do a variety of effects. And the number one effect they like to do is lock down your zones. So with Kashtira Shangri-La, anytime one of your cards is banished face down, it will lock down either your monster zone or your spell trap zone, whichever they choose. But you best believe they have combos to lock down all your zones ready. So you have to have some tools in your deck ready and prepared to take down the Kashtira deck. On top of locking down your zones, they actually do banish face down straight out of your deck, as well as your extra deck with Mind Hacker. But with the Mind Hacker's extra ability, anytime a card is banished face down at all, it's going to count the cards in your banished pile, and it will banish that many cards from your deck again, okay? So that adds up really quickly and is super dangerous for combo-oriented decks going forward, because they will start banishing all your resources out, and that will interrupt your combo lines. And then with their most latest Exceed coming out from Photon Hypernova, we're going to be seeing that it is not only going to be a walking macrocosmos, so that's dangerous enough, but anytime a card is banished, it will, with a mandatory effect, attach one of the banished cards or a banished card to itself as Exceed material, and you best believe it has an effect ready to attach to destroy cards on the board, okay? So with that being said, how do we counter the Kashtira deck, okay? And if you're going first, simply put, you floodgate them. So given that Kashtira is a huge monster effect deck, all their effects are very important, and without them, it is a little bit dangerous for them in an uphill battle. If your deck can fit Skill Drain in it, like Dark Worlds, you're looking pretty good. So Skill Drain will not only prevent them from blocking the board, it will take out the Macrocosmos, but even if they already have some of the effects going forward, Skill Drain will turn off their effects, and if Shangri-La's effect is negated at all, your board is back on. The one thing I do want to keep and say is that Kashtira, being an Exceed deck primarily, and that it is a level 7, rank 7 deck, they can go into Draco Sack to pop your Skill Drain. So we're going to be seeing that at the higher level plays. They're going to Exceed into the Draco Sack, self-tributed it off, and pop the Skill Drain under its own effect, okay? So we cannot just rely solely on Skill Drain against them at the higher levels of the meta, but things such as Dimensional Barrier will come in really handy, again, given that they are an Exceed deck. So if you call Exceed, their turn's going to pretty much end, except they're going to have maybe their level 7s on the board, but they're not going to have the boss monsters, and they're not going to lock down your zone. And again, this is mainly for going first, but Dimensional Barrier can be used if you happen to have to go second. You can essentially turn off the Exceed effects, again, turn off the Shangri-La, turn off the Walking Macrocosmos, and then you're back in the game. Now, if you are a little bit worried about the Kashtira deck banishing all your resources, then you might consider playing Imperial Iron Wall. With Imperial Iron Wall, it's going to block all cards from being banished, essentially turning off all the boss monster effects that will happen, like the blocking of the zones or the stealing from material, and essentially rid their effects useless. So Imperial Iron Wall is going to be seeing a huge uptick in play and side deck ability going into the next meta. So if you these options are good, but maybe you want to kind of lock them down, before they summon out their Exceeds, before they're, getting their board filled up. We have plenty of options, one of them being there can be only one. Now, Kashtiras are all psychic, okay? Their new boss monster is the machine, but you need to be able to, get it onto their psychics. So with there can be only one, locking them into one psychic on the board, especially if you lock them into the unicorn, is going to be really good moving forward. Another option you can use instead of, or as well as, is Goes and Match. Each of the Kashtiras, especially all the level 7 monsters that they summon before they exceed summon, they're all different attributes. So know, Unicorn is like the wind, we have Fenrir as the earth, all the other ones are like water and fire. So if you goes and match them, especially if it's on something like I said, the Unicorn, you're going to lock them into that one attribute where unless they're playing special tech, so you know, like instant contact into the, you know, air Neos, they're going to be locked in the one monster with the goes and match. And if you play this in line with any of the other cards, you really are locking down that Kashtira deck with the floodgates. And last up on the list that's kind of interesting that it just came out in the recent OTS pack is Grave of the Super Ancient Organism. Now what this does is all level 6 or higher special summon monsters, their effects are negated and they cannot attack. So if you're dealing with the primary monsters before they go into the seeds, this is going to lock them down pretty well. But that being said, keep in mind if they get 2 level 7s on the board, they can exceed right out from under the Grave of the Super Ancient Organism and continue their line of play. So this is going first, this is floodgating, again, pretty easy to do, but what we really need to know is how to go second against Kashtira, because again, they have combos that can banish cards from all the resources from your deck, as well as lock down your zones, so you have to be prepared. And some of the most commonly used cards are triple Tactics Tasking, as well as triple Tactics Talent. And we've been seeing both of these kind of used together because if you open up talents against them, they will use monster effects during your turn. The Shangri-La activates during the standby phase, so they can summon out Kashtira straight from the deck. And then if anything gets activated, it gets banished. You know, you have their Arise Heart immediately activating its mandatory effect to attach a banished card to itself as material. And then Mind Hacker can actually use this effect as well during your turn if a card is banished face down. So Tactics Tasking coming out in the same set with the Kashtira support will make it where you can, if you don't open talent, you can add it straight to your hand if they activate the monster effect, or if you open up talent as well as tasking, you can use talents, get some resource use out of it, maybe draw a card or steal their monster, and they can use tasking to get an extra card from the deck to the hand if you want to play, you know, one of your archetype spells or what have you. And these are also really good in the Kashtira mirror match as well. Next up is if you're again like the Imperial Iron Wall, not really happy that they're banishing your cards, maybe you're really scared of them hitting out the combo pieces in your deck, you might consider Chaos Hunter. Now, Chaos Hunter is when your opponent special summons monster, you pitch a card, summon it from your hand, and then it's like Imperial Iron Wall, except for your opponent. So they cannot banish cards. Again, that is going to lock down most of their combos, and with its 2500 attack, essentially, I do believe all their mini monsters aren't going to be able to punch over it. Perhaps maybe the Ogre, but, you know, it's going to basically be in line with their attacks. But again, a lot of the time, this is during their first turn. You're going to drop Chaos Hunter, so you don't really actually have to worry about the battle. But making sure they cannot banish your resources is super important if you're a combo deck, so do consider Chaos Hunter going into the future. Next up on the list is a card that's been gaining a little bit in popularity, and that is Book of Eclipse. Now, we are kind of asking here, why Book of Eclipse? Why not just Raigeki the board? Why not Darkhold the board? That's because a lot of the Kashtiras actually are immune to destruction through various effects. Shangri-La actually has a detach so it can save itself, as well as the Arise Heart. There's a combo a lot of Kashtira decks are actually using right now. So if they use Prod of Prosperity, they will banish the Goliath, and then they can actually use the Arise Heart to attach the Goliath to itself as material. And then when Goliath is attached to an Exceed monster, that Exceed monster is actually immune to card destruction effects, okay? So we have to opt into cards such as Book of Eclipse to be able to rid our opponent's board without actually having to destroy it. So simply flipping them all face down will turn off all their effects. They won't have a macro, they won't have the zones blocked anymore, and then Diablos isn't going to be banishing 10 cards or whatever from your deck. That's really good. So Book of Eclipse, especially for budget players moving forward, this is a card you want to kind of have ready to and waiting to go against the Kashtira deck. But if Book of Eclipse is not exactly what you're looking for, we have an even cooler option, in my opinion, at least aesthetically, that is Swords of Concealing Light. And we've actually been seeing this have an uptick not only in price for certain variants, but in playability, especially against the Kashtira deck. Again, it doesn't destroy, it will flip them face down. And the thing I like about Swords of Concealing, you know, Book of Eclipse is a quick play, so that has its own merits, but Swords of Concealing will leave them face down for 2 whole turns. So even if you don't open up the best combo in your deck possible, and maybe you can't rid the board completely of everything they have, Swords of Concealing Light will keep their monsters flipped face down. So these are not all the options we have. There's an even better one coming up. But if you guys find yourself way back to the channel, or you're getting anything from the information at all, do consider supporting the channel. Hit that subscribe button. On our last video, honestly, we've had a lot of love, a lot of subscribes, and I'd very, very much appreciate that. So again, guys, if you find yourself way back into the channel, or you're getting any of the content, finding it interesting at all, do hit that subscribe. We're gaining a lot of numbers, and I really, really do appreciate it. But what is honestly the best card to counter the Kashtira deck? And that is the Kurikara Div Incarnate. And now a few players have been a little bit hip to this, so the price of it has increased, but that's for its own video. The Div Incarnate has its own, usability against the Kashtira deck, because it must be special summoned from your hand by tributing all face-up monsters on the field that activated their effects in your turn, and then are on the opponent's monster zones, okay? So given that their Shangri-La can actually activate to summon a Kashtira from the deck, they have the walking macro that anytime anything gets banished, it can actually attach to itself, and then that will trigger the Diablos. There's about 3 monsters that will probably be activating their effects during your turn. And then not only will she tribute off the cards on the opponent's board to summon herself, but for each monster tributed, she gains 1500 attack per monster. So if they only have the Shangri-La, the Arise Heart, and the Mind Hacker, heck, they might even summon out a monster, you can actually tribute out all 3 of their monsters, summon the Div Incarnate, and it will be sitting at 6000 attack. So if you can go into any other parts of your combo line, maybe bring out 2 monsters with some decent attack, that should actually be enough damage to OTK your opponent if you're able to tribute off their monster board with the Div Incarnate. So there's a few other options if you don't like, the Div Incarnate in the deck, or maybe it doesn't work well with what you want. There's a few other options such as Lava Golem or the Sphere mode, but honestly, moving forward, especially in the Mare match, it seems like whoever opens up the Div Incarnate against the Kashtira deck seems to walk out with the victory, okay? And again, this is with them going first and you going second, so that's really important. And the reason I like the Div Incarnate over the things such as Sphere Mode and Lava Golem, they really do summon up the board, so you don't got to worry about having the numbers for both of those. But honestly, it's that extra resource to the board. You're summoning a monster, sometimes with an insane amount of attack that can beat over whatever monster they summoned out, honestly. But on top of that, again, it's a resource to the board. You can link with it, you can synchro with it, you can do whatever with it to start your turn after you've rid your opponent's board of all their monsters that activated their effects during your turn. And then, even if you don't want to use it as a resource, maybe you want to leave it around on the board, keep the monster with the beefy attack, during your end phase, you could target a monster in your opponent's graveyard and special summon it to your board. So you can actually take their Arise Heart or any of the monsters like the Fenrir out of their graveyard, summon it straight to the board, and then you're sitting there with the offensive line against the Kashtira deck. So again, guys, I do believe the Div Incarnate probably the best card overall for it. And that being said, kind of round things out, what are the best choices overall that we can be seeing used against the Kashtira deck? The first up is the Triple Tactics talent line, and I want to say talent and tasking because moving forward, we're going to be seeing both played heavily in Kashtira and against Kashtira. Next up, especially for the budget players, we have that Book of Eclipse, and honestly, this is a great card moving forward against the Kashtira deck. And again, if your budget, this is the card for you. There's some kind of higher ones up there, some hollow ones, but honestly, lots of commons to choose from, which is really nice. Then we got the Swords Concealing Light to flip them down and lock them down, and we've been seeing a lot of players choose this in the meta call against Book of Eclipse. And again, number 1 card moving forward is going to be the Kurikara Div Incarnate. And again, guys, if you got anything from this video or just keep seeing your way back here, seeing my face or enjoying any of this, please, as always, hit that subscribe, comment down below some maybe interesting text you guys thought of. It's really nice seeing what the players actually come up with. You guys have a lot of cool tech. But as always, guys, stay safe, have a good night, and suck it, nerds.